we did the Speak Up training virtually on 2 Tuesdays in a row. And I had 2 different incidents that happened in the interim that really kind of caught my attention, and I've wanted to share with the group at the end of the training. The first incident had happened actually the day before our first Speak Up meeting. So the meeting was on a Tuesday, and this had happened on a Monday. I am core faculty at a community OBGYN program. So I serve as the attending staff in a clinic, and I help 2 or 3 or 4 residents run their clinic through the afternoon. So what happens is the residents go and see the patient. They come and tell me what's going on. I go in with them to make sure that I agree, and then we all come up with a plan. So this particular day, this Monday, there was a patient that the front desk let me know was very upset. She had been told in the emergency room that she was going to get an ultrasound, and I had made the decision after reviewing her chart that she didn't need that ultrasound, and she was very upset. So I went up to the front desk to explain why I didn't think she needed an ultrasound. And she kept saying, I just want to make sure that there's nothing wrong. And I said, well, I've reviewed your chart. I know you were in the ER yesterday because you had some bleeding, but they were able to see the baby in your uterus. And so they've already confirmed the pregnancy. And she said to me, that's not what I'm worried about. They told me I have bleeding inside my uterus, and I just want to make sure that there's no problem. And I said, okay, well, let's do this. Let's have you see the doctor. And then once we get, I said, that's not what's written in the ER notes. Let's have you see the doctor. And once we see you, then we'll decide if you need an ultrasound. So I let the resident know what had happened at the front desk, and she went in and saw the patient. She came out and talked to me. We pulled the images from the ER. I went back into the patient and said, hey, we're going to go ahead and ultrasound you. Thank you so much for telling us. Sorry for the confusion. And she kept saying every time I encountered her, she kept saying, I just want to make sure there's nothing wrong. I just want to make sure that I'm okay. I just want to make sure that this isn't an emergency. And I said, I understand. We're going to do the ultrasound. The tech will come and get you. And I stepped out with the resident, and I told the resident, I don't really understand why she's so worried. I don't really understand why she's saying it. And then I kind of just put the incident away. Tuesday, when we were sitting there and talking about speaking up for women of color, I kept this patient, this lady kept coming into my mind. And I know all the data. I teach residents, we talk about the difference in maternal morbidity and mortality, particularly in Georgia, where I train these residents. And I know the numbers. And I know that the data says that these numbers are a result of us dismissing or discounting women's stories. None of that triggered me on Monday, but Tuesday, when I was sitting in this room listening to our online training, I had this moment where I realized that what she was saying to me was that she wanted to make sure that I heard her. And I think that there's a little bit of a trap. First trimester bleeding is really common. 50% of women, 35% of women will have it. Half of those will go on to have a normal pregnancy. And so in my brain, I had already logicked this, and I wasn't worried at all about the small amount of bleeding that they saw around the baby. But she didn't know any of that. And I didn't hear her that day, which of course I still feel awful about. So the training was Tuesday. I couldn't get this patient out of my mind. The first thing I did on Wednesday, when I got back into the office, was I pulled my schedule to get her name, and I pulled her chart, and I called her, and I said, hey, Miss Lady, it's Dr. Taylor. I just wanted to call and check on you and make sure that you were doing okay from yesterday. I just wanted to make sure that your pain hadn't gotten any worse and your bleeding hadn't gotten any worse, and that you felt like we were taking good care of you. And she said, oh, I feel fine. Thank you for calling. I said, it's my pleasure. Our plan is to see you again in 2 weeks. If something changes in 2 weeks, please please let us know. And then I felt better. I felt like I had done a better job of listening to her and hearing her concerns. Imagine my surprise when I got a message from her on Friday through the electronic system that said, I just wanted to say thank you because I don't think that anyone has ever listened to me like you did. And while I'm grateful for the training, I wish I had done a better job the first time around. So she's fine, by the way. The pregnancy is continuing well. The second patient, in some ways, had some similarities. In other ways, was a little bit different. This patient, I had seen, again, with the residents on the labor unit. The first time I met her, she was on her 7th visit to our hospital system. She was 16 years old. She is 16 years old. This is her first pregnancy, and she was about 20 weeks pregnant. She had been on 7 different occasions to more than one hospital in our system with the complaints of this horrible, horrible pain in her abdomen. And she had gotten labs and urines. She had been told this is round ligament pain. She had been sent home with pain medicine. She had seen her midwives in between these hospital visits, and she had still been told this was round ligament pain. So the first time I met her on a Thursday, a third-year resident did her initial evaluation, a third-year resident that I trust very much, and came to me and said, you know, the patient says this pain is terrible, but she doesn't look like the pain is terrible. And in her chart, it says that this is round ligament pain. And I said, you know, round ligament pain doesn't wake you up in the middle of the night, make you cry. It doesn't make you throw up. Are you sure that you feel comfortable? I said, you know, we know that we don't listen well to Black women and their concerns. Are you sure that we're not just dismissing this lady? And she said, yes, I'm sure. She said, you know, she's 16. She got pregnant in juvie. Her father of the baby is not with her. I think she might be homeless. I think this is probably just psychosocial. And I said, tell me the tests you've run. Tell me what you've done. She told me all the things. Everything was normal. I went in to meet the young lady, pushed on her belly. Everything was fine. I said, okay, do you feel comfortable going home? And she said, yes. And I said, I know they've talked to you about round ligament pain. What this usually is a pain when you move, and it's really sharp and it's really terrible. Does that sound like what you're having? And she said, well, does that hurt for 3 hours? And I said, no, you know, not typically. Talked to her about a support belt. She went home. So that was a Thursday. A week and a half later, so Tuesday, I did the first speak up training. And then that next Saturday, I was on call in the hospital. And when I came in the morning, she was back on our labor unit. This was her 8th visit now. And once again, there was a conversation between the team that was leaving, an attending and 2 residents, and the team that was coming on, myself and 2 residents. And they said, you know, she says she's got this terrible pain. She looks really comfortable. We don't understand. And I said, okay, here's the deal. The data says we don't listen. I don't know what's going on. This isn't round ligament pain. If the blood work and the urine that you're doing today is normal, we're going to image her. She has bought herself all the workup I can do. Let's start with an ultrasound. And if the ultrasound isn't helpful, then we're going to CT her abdomen and pelvis, because I don't know what's going on, but something is going on. And that was about 8 o'clock when we changed shifts. About 9:30, I got a phone call from the nurse in triage who said, you know, this patient hasn't seen a resident since 4 a.m. and she is writhing in pain. I think somebody needs to come right now. And I said, okay, I'll send the resident. The resident will be there within 15 minutes. And I called the resident and I said, you need to go. You need to go lay hands on her right now. And she said, I just wanted to let you know that radiology just called and the patient has a completely torsed ovary. Ovarian torsion in pregnancy is uncommon and hadn't at all been on our differential. But this young lady was in the OR within 30 minutes so that we could untwist and hopefully save her ovary. And we untwisted it and it was fine. And she told me as she was waking up from surgery, she told me as she was going to sleep for surgery, she kept saying how grateful she was, and you give them a little bit of medicine and they get a little silly. All she could say was, thank you for listening to me. No one has listened to me. And the whole OR team commented on how grateful she sounded. And she told me as soon as she woke up that the pain was completely gone. And her mom, who I called, said, I really don't feel like anyone's been taking care of her, and I just wanted to say thank you for listening.